Hello, my name is Dawn and I'm the Ginger Cat Stitcher. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I just wanted to share my dough bowl, and these 4 little pillows here are hiding a secret. That's a little dramatic of me to say that, but each one of these little pillows is stuffed with something that would normally be thrown away. So the idea of reusing, repurposing is not a new idea whatsoever, but I definitely think it's an idea that there's a resurgence in that type of thinking. And I've definitely challenged myself for 2025 to not always run out and buy something. If I'm in, if I need more of something, maybe to start looking around my house and come up with an alternative. And so that's exactly what I did with these 4 little pillows. And like I said, they're stuffed with, each one stuffed with something different that normally would just be considered a waste product and would be thrown away. So join me as we go through each one of these little pillows and I'll tell you what they're stuffed with. So the pile of items that I have on my desk here looks like trash, but this is actually the secret ingredient to the stuffing of those cute little pillows that I just showed you. So we have here cotton and just some cotton balls, and then this is cotton from the top of a vitamin bottle. And cotton has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years for stuffing, and it makes an excellent stuffing. This is my snippet bowl that sits next to where I do all my cross stitch, and it's filled with all these little snips of thread, and little snip by snip, the thread, it really adds up to be quite a lot of material. And this little guy, he's so cute. My son-in-law gave him to me for Christmas. He sits next to my sewing machine, and every little thread that I clip off while I'm sewing goes in here, and same kind of thing. Before you know it, you get quite a pile of it. And then this jar sits on my cutting table, and it's filled with fabric and wool bits from all the projects that I make. And every little bit I just put in my jar here, and before you know it, it too is all filled up with stuffing. Now, a couple of the more unusual things that I used was tissue paper, and you can use any color tissue paper. Christmas time seems to be the time when I acquire an abundance of tissue paper, and I save it, but I use it for stuffing rather than for gifts. But so this just happens to be a brown colored tissue paper that I have. And then the most unusual of all would be grocery bags. So just your plastic grocery bags and produce bags. It's an excellent way to recycle those. So let me go ahead and show you how to use these in your projects. Okay, so pillow number 1, these cute little birds in the nest, and this one is going to be stuffed with the tissue paper. Since it is so small, I am tearing the tissue paper into small bits to stuff in here, just like I would use small bits of polyester fiberfill. I'm just also using small bits of tissue paper. And the stuffing is no different than stuffing with the fiberfill, just little bits, pushing down in there to make sure that I'm getting it into my corners. And one thing about using all of these alternative stuffing materials is that each little pillow has a slightly different feel and sound. Polyester fiberfill doesn't really make a sound, but Like for example, the tissue paper here has just a very soft crinkle feel to it, and just a different feel than if it was filled with the fiber fill. So I'm just tearing off a piece, ripping it into a little bit smaller pieces, and tucking that right on in there. And just like with fiber fill, you would fill it as full as you want it. Whether you want it stuffed loosely or firmly, it's all up to you. So that's what's in this little guy. Next is this cute little bee skep. And inside of him is little bits of wool and fabric. So that comes from this jar. And just like I did with tearing the tissue paper into smaller pieces, the same thing is true with the fabric. I'm going to just cut it into bits. And sometimes this is fun to do while you're watching TV in the evenings, because you don't have to pay attention to it. It's just mindless. Now, if I was stuffing something bigger, I wouldn't necessarily bother cutting, something like this size up. But since these pillows are just a couple inch square, I'm going to be using smaller pieces of fabric just to give it a nicer stuffed look. So just like if you were to use, big pieces of fiber fill in a small, arm of a doll or pillow or something like that, it's not going to have the same quality look to it as if you were using smaller bits. And so I use both cotton and wool together, in the same pillow. And same thing, I'll just take little pieces and tuck that on in there. And of all these materials, I would say the fabric and the wool stuffing is my favorite because of the weight that it gives, particularly the wool. When you stuff something with wool, it just has like a real old-fashioned antique feel to stuffed items, and it gives it a weight. Not as heavy as using walnut shells, and definitely not the same feel, but it does have its own unique little feel to it that I just really love. So that's this one, getting stuffed with fabric and wool scraps. And this next little pillow here is stuffed with the cotton. And this one is particularly like the polyester. I just grab my cotton ball and I'll pull it apart, kind of fluff it up, and use just small little bits to stuff into my little pillow. And same thing, use your finger or chopstick or whatever to get it poked into the corners. And the cotton and the fabric stuffing, they really don't have a sound to them. If you were to crinkle the pillow or, squish the pillow, it doesn't have a crinkling sound to it. So that's, some items that might be important and other items not really. So we would just stuff with cotton the exact same way that we would stuff with polyester fiber fill. And then I have this little guy here, and this one is stuffed with the plastic grocery bags. So for this one, once again, So I use fabric scissors on that one. I'm going to use smaller pieces simply because of the size of the little pillow that I'm stuffing. So I'm just going to cut and tear just like this. So we're going to cut it up into little pieces like that. And again, you're just going to stuff using this material. I think this is a fantastic way to use this plastic that, you know, every time you go to the grocery store, any store actually, you just get so many of these bags. And I know a lot of places have started to charge for a bag. The particular part of Texas that I live in does not, and they still give out plastic bags like crazy. And when I say, oh, I don't need a bag for that, they look at me like I'm insane. But I know up in Austin, they're not doing plastic bags anymore. But this is actually a very surprisingly wonderful material to stuff with. It gives a really nice squish, and it has a nice bounce back to it, which is kind of hard to describe, but a nice little bounce back to it. Okay, so, and to talk about the threads, I would use these the same way that I use the fabric stuffing. So this is the little pillow that I'm stuffing with the fabric bits. Same thing, I would also just use little bits of thread and just stuff those in there. You know, and it's just a great way to take something that is just going to go in the trash. And I produce a lot of it because I'm constantly stitching and sewing. Oh, and here's a piece of yarn. So that's another thing you can use if you do, you know, crochet or knitting, and you have all these little scraps of yarn. Keep them, put them in a little dish, a little tin. Keep them next to where you knit, where you crochet, and they really add up very quickly. It's amazing how much thread waste and fabric waste comes about from making things. And I think that this is the perfect way to deal with all of that. So that's what I would do with the thread too, it is to go ahead and stuff little things. And I wanted to show you a couple of other things. So this doll right here, she was featured in my video from last week. And from her head all the way down to about right here, all of this is stuffed with the fabric scraps that were created simply from cutting her pattern pieces out. So it really kind of worked out great because the colors, you know, are light, and so I could go ahead and stuff a light colored body. You wouldn't want to use black or dark blue fabrics to stuff, you know, a muslin body like this, because it would show through. So in this case, I would use either, you know, something clear, something white, cotton, or material that is light colored. So her whole head and torso are stuffed with fabric. And then I also have this pillow here, and it's a good sized pillow. Let me zoom you out a little bit. It sits on the armchair in my craft room. I'd say it's probably 10 inches by 18 inches. This entire pillow is stuffed with wool fabric bits. So I do a lot of rug hooking and wool applique, and I absolutely save every little snippet, and I put it in a basket, and then I'll use it to stuff something big like this. And it's so tactile. It's just such a nice feeling. It's got a really kind of hefty weight to it. It sits in the chair nicely, and it just has this antique, old feel to it, even though it's brand new. And I just had a couple other things I wanted to share with you. I did not use these in stuffing the little pillows, but paper from your paper shredder would also make an excellent stuffing. It would be the same thing along the lines of the tissue paper. So if you have a paper shredder, you get a lot of material from that. Also, you could think junk mail, recycle any kind of paper products that way. And then another option is with an old throw pillow. So I have this pillow here that's going to make an appearance in another video for a project that I'm working on. So even though its days of being a throw pillow are over, inside it's, of course, stuffed with fiberfill. So old throw pillows or chair pads, anything like that you have that you might just throw away or donate, it could be worth opening them up and seeing what they're stuffed with and setting that aside to use. So I hope this video has given you some ideas on how you can use unusual materials around your house to stuff some of the little projects that you create. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Find time for stitching, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.